Arizona Wildlife Views, brought to you by the sale of hunting and fishing licenses and the Heritage Fund, lottery dollars working for wildlife. Some projects are made possible by the Sport Fish and Wildlife Restoration Fund.
Ready? All right, let's go find birds. Let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our show, Arizona Wildlife Views. I'm your host, Chuck Emmert. We have a couple of very special guests today. Lady Liberty, she's an American bald eagle, and her handler, Joe Miller. Lady Liberty lives here at the Liberty Wildlife Rehabilitation Center in Scottsdale. She and Joe help educate people about bald eagles. Another person that helps educate people about bald eagles is our own Debbie Freeman with the Arizona Game and Fish Department.
Well, Chuck, Arizona has 42 breeding pairs of bald eagles. They produce an average of 35 nestlings each year. Keeping track of all these young nestlings can be difficult, especially as they migrate out of state. But now our biologists are getting some high-tech help to get the job done.
What would it be like to soar with a bald eagle, our national symbol, across the skies of our country?
Some of these beautiful birds are flying and migrating all the way from their Arizona homes to states as far away as Wyoming and Washington State. And we know about their movements thanks to some high-tech devices and the Arizona Game and Fish Department's Bald Eagle Management Program.
Personally, I've spent about 15, 16 years studying bald eagles in Arizona, and it's definitely a thrill every time I come out and see what's going on.
Like that. There you go. There you go.
It's like watching a soap opera, if you will, where you watch families grow up over time and then
James
get to see
Driscoll,
babies that
the head of the department's Bald Eagle Management Program, takes great pride in what he and his colleagues accomplish. Every year, the program hires nest watchers to camp out for 4 months in order to monitor the breeding efforts of Arizona's bald eagles and make sure they're successful.
The female is on the nest right now, incubating. Our male flew out towards the lake this morning and was just checking to see if maybe he had popped back into the area and was back on the cliff somewhere.
The Nest Watch program is credited with saving the lives of 44 eagle nestlings since it began in 1978. That's equal to 1 out of every 10 eagles that have lived long enough to fly on their own in Arizona since the program started.
The Bald Eagle Management Program also closely follows the progress of newly hatched eaglets each year by placing identification bands on about 70% of the state's nestlings.
You might be asleep.
This is a complex process that involves having biologists rappel down the side of a cliff or climb up a tree using ropes, pulleys, and shoes with spikes.
I'm getting ready to climb this tree and grab these 9-week-old nestlings. They're full grown at this point and willing to fight a little bit. Either way, it'll be exciting. That's for sure.
Arizona only has 42 breeding pairs of bald eagles, so taking care of the babies and watching over the adults is very important. And the newest, most high-tech way of tracking Arizona's bald eagles goes well beyond the ID bands. It involves satellites, the internet, and some tough, daring eagle biologists.
We're on the Lower Verde today, putting transmitters on 2 nestlings so we can track them over the next 2 or 3 years and find out where they're going to do their foraging and spend their time.
The transmitters accomplish what no human team could otherwise get done. They allow biologists to track the eagles for years without the humans having to travel at all and without the weather being a factor.
It's hermetically sealed, so rain or anything like that can get into it. The transmitter transmits a signal up to a satellite. The information's transmitted to a computer where we can get the location and how much the bird's moved, actually get a temperature, body temperature from the bird, all of which will let us know if it's still healthy and if it's moving and most importantly where it's at.
Transmitters are attached to selected eaglets when they're about 9 weeks old. The devices look kind of like something that human children use all the time.
The transmitter is basically like a backpack that people wear, or kids wear. I mean, it's fitted the same way. It comes across their shoulders and comes underneath just like a regular backpack and hooks in the middle. But these birds are going to be wearing them for a long time and they can't adjust them like we can. So we need to make sure in every possible way that stays where we put it so it doesn't cause them injury and doesn't prevent them from living a normal life and foraging and eating everything that they need to do.
Before the transmitter can be carefully placed onto an eagle, a biologist has to get the nestling down from its high perch to where a crew is waiting on the ground.
They'll do one of 2 things at this age. First of all, there's a real good chance that they will fly from the nest when they see me up there. They won't really fly, but they'll glide, and the people on the ground here will pick them up. Second option is they'll decide to stay up there and fight me, and I'll have to do the same thing that they do on the ground, just from about 60 feet up.
As biologist Kenneth Tuck Jacobson begins his steep climb to the eagle's nest, preparations are being made on the ground in case the 2 birds decide to hop out.
So if we can totally know right where we think it hit the ground, that's the best thing for us to start our circle radiating out and looking for the thing. When Tuck climbs up into the nest, they'll get real defensive and try and protect themselves. At this age, they're a little more gutsy about how much they can fly. They'll risk taking their first flight than dealing with this person climbing into the nest. So we time it at a certain age where they can glide really well but not fly too well.
The crew on the ground will spread out and make sure everyone knows exactly where to go, just in case the birds take off.
It's a really coordinated effort, and the more people we have is usually the better.
Meanwhile, Tuck is nearing the nest. He's made this climb and others like it countless times before. Still, it looks incredible from the ground.
We've got experienced climbers that we've trained over the years that know how to climb the trees, handle the birds in a particular way to make sure that they're not injured and the climber's not injured.
As Tuck reaches the nest, the choreographed chaos begins. First, one eaglet glides to the ground. Then its sibling decides it doesn't want to deal with Tuck either. And the chase is on.
Do you have them done?
A circle of biologists and volunteers closes in on the 2 eaglets. Then, one nestling is caught.
Man, he's a good runner.
Followed a few moments later by its sibling.
Let me step by you there, Preston. Come on. Down. Oh, that hurt. Easy. Easy, little guy. Easy. Nobody move, please. Stop moving.
The whole chase only took a few minutes, but it probably felt like a lifetime to these biologists who only want to do their best to protect the eaglets.
We'll be good to go. Hi, handsome. You are a stud. You have the will to survive.
In fact, they were so intent on finding the birds, they overlooked a few things.
Okay, let's get out of here. Without stepping on any rattlesnakes. Although, the way we're crashing through them, I'm amazed we already haven't.
Besides the possibility of rattlesnakes on the ground, biologists might trip over a tree limb or get scraped up by the heavy brush around them. Or an eaglet might accidentally get a little bit too much of a hold with its talons.
I got a little bit firsthand today, but it wasn't too bad. I don't think it'll leave any permanent marks, so we're good to go.
The toughest part seems to be over now. Once the crew gets back to an open area, it's time to calm the eaglets down and get ready for the birds' checkups and transmitters. Biologist Jorge Kanaka checks to make sure the birds have no physical injuries, like torn feathers or broken bones, and the nestlings get sprayed down.
We try and spray a little bit of water into their mouth to give them a little bit of a drink, and we spray them down with water just to keep them cool, and it reduces the stress factors on them a little bit.
Something else that helps to calm the eaglets are makeshift blindfolds.
For their benefit and for ours, we have hoods that we put over their eyes. Raptors are very visually orientated, so when you put a hood over their eyes, it calms them down immensely. And the second thing we do is call them booties. They're just soft pieces of cloth that we wrap around the legs and feet to make sure that they don't talon us with their feet or themselves by accident.
Once the hoods and booties are on and the birds are a little more comfortable, it's time to take measurements and carefully put on their new satellite transmitters.
Jorge is basically the transmitter that is on the back has two straps. Ones that go over the top of the shoulder, and then there's two more that come back around underneath the lower sides of the back of the wing. Jorge goes through and basically, almost feather by feather, make sure that the straps for the transmitter backpack are as close to the body as possible. That way, he ensures that once we have all the straps tight, later on when the bird preens, it actually doesn't loosen up the transmitter anymore.
One biologist usually fits the transmitter, and a second person double checks it. This transmitter should last 2 to 3 years with battery power. Some solar-powered transmitters can last longer than that, up to 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
Once the eaglets have their transmitters, they're safely raised back into their nest in a ventilated bag, and then the biologist in the tree carefully descends. The information that scientists will get from the transmitters installed today is priceless when it comes to helping the eagles in the future.
It's most important in the management of the areas that they're using. A lot of the year they leave Arizona and we don't know where they're going. And if they're going to a place in Oregon or Washington and coming back with some sort of disease or poisoning, we can find out where some of those places are, hopefully, and find out what kind of management needs that we can do up there or down here to remedy those situations.
John Colazar has dedicated much of his life to making sure bald eagles thrive in Arizona. He says the transmitters have helped with eagle research, management, and survival. A perfect fit for a program that does so much to protect these beautiful birds.
I've been working with bald eagles since '93, and everything about bald eagles has felt good to me. Not only finding out who they are, where they came from, and the dynamics of the birds working around the state and how the different breeding areas affect another breeding area by producing adults that move here and move there, but also the hands-on, being able to rescue them in situations where they've fallen out of a nest or they've injured themselves in one way or another, and through the Nest Watch program or us happening upon them just at the right time, to actually do a direct impact by helping them physically to get on the right foot again.
Now, the technology involved in those transmitters will allow us to keep track of that bald eagle for a long, long time. Now, here's a riddle. What does the Audubon Society, the holiday season, the Arizona Game and Fish Department, and a group of volunteers all have in common? Why, it's the annual Christmas bird count, that's what. In our next story, we'll take you across the state to show you what these intrepid volunteers are doing to keep track of wild birds in Arizona.
There's a cardinal.
Crystal thresher.
You see the mockingbird?
Yeah.
These avid birders aren't just watching birds, they're counting them as part of the annual Christmas bird count.
10, 12, 14, 15, 16. Robins?
What are they? Robin?
Robins.
This is Humboldt Mountain. And we're just looking here, particularly for sparrows.
We're in far west Sedona off of Dry Creek Road.
We're right here.
Okay.
We're at the Granite Reef Recreation Area.
Every year, from December the 14th through January the 5th, hundreds of dedicated bird lovers fan out across the state to help conduct this survey of wintering birds in Arizona. They are a part of the National Christmas Bird Count, which takes place throughout the U.S. and Canada. The Audubon Society sponsors the annual event, which began 105 years ago. It has evolved from a slightly different holiday tradition.
Christmas count started in the year 1900 by a fellow by the name of Frank Chapman, who was a big wheel in the Audubon Society. And what was happening at Christmas, they had a traditional, in the East, a Christmas bird shoot. And a bunch of people would go out and see who could shoot the most birds. And he thought, well, this is ridiculous. I think it's better to go out and count the birds.
Basic explanation of a Christmas bird count is you go out to a designated area and you find as many species as you can see, and you count the number of individuals in a species as well as the species, so that when it's all turned into the National Audubon Society, then they can tally and track the migratory patterns.
The annual count is combined with other surveys to get a clearer picture of bird populations and how they are distributed across the Western Hemisphere. The information is vast and available to anyone interested in it, including agencies like Arizona Game and Fish.
The data is pretty basic, but it's information that otherwise isn't being collected. And it looks at all species, not just certain species. Game and Fish often look at specific winter data for like bald eagles and waterfowl and things like that, concentration areas, but they don't gather winter data for a lot of other species of birds, and this is one way of doing that.
In Arizona, some of the trends in bird populations, like so many things here, are being shaped by our exploding growth.
And so you see some species that associate with urban areas increasing, while some of the other species that associate with the agriculture or more desert areas that they're going down in population. You'll see that.
On the Christmas counts, they have to be very precise, and they try to be. And so if somebody sees an unusual sighting, we have to write a detailed description of how we decided, excuse me a minute, a piece of newspaper, how we decided that that's what it was, who saw it, how long did you see it, how did you know that that's what it was, what was it doing, what kind of optical equipment did you have, and then the compiler will decide whether to count it or not. And then the compilation of our compilers are reviewed by another level of compilers. And so it might even come back to our compiler and say, well, I don't see how that could have been what it was. And so even though we're all amateurs, the information is pretty accurate over time.
Oh, he's right here, right here.
I mean, I don't think anybody cares whether we see 4,800 starlings or whether we see 4,699 starlings, but on on the declining species and that type of thing, I think by and large the information is really accurate.
I thought when I looked at them first they were bluebirds, and then when they flew, the ones that flew were finches. You know.
Citizen science is it's a good way, especially with folks that are interested in birds and do birding a lot. They have a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience that a lot of biologists may not have, especially identifying birds by calls or knowing the habitats that they occur in.
It is extremely important work. One of the primary things about birds is that they tend to be a precursor of the warning system that something's going wrong with the environment. If, for instance, one year we have an overabundance of robins and the next year we don't see but a few, then we wonder what happened to the robins.
Arizona Game and Fish biologists understand that having this type of continuous background data can be very valuable when they see population changes in some sensitive species.
They're also using this information to help designate important bird areas, which are areas that show a high concentration of birds either threatened or endangered, or a species of concern either in breeding or wintering, or just a high concentration of a diversity of species of birds, like a lot of our riparian areas and wetland areas. And that data can be used to help support designating these areas as important bird areas.
This place should be full of white-crowned sparrows. There's nothing in there.
We're likely to get the largest number of maybe curve-billed thrashers or Aberd's towhees of any count anywhere.
All of the participants in the count are volunteers, usually long-time birders who can put their expertise to good use and savor the natural beauty and unexpected delights of Arizona.
Oh, look at the balloons coming through the dry creek.
And the thing with birders is they enjoy doing it. They really enjoy looking at birds anyways, and they just feel like that their experiences and their hobby is coming to use. The information is going to be used in some way.
He's sitting there. I think it's not a flucker though. It's a Gila.
Okay, that I'll buy.
Well, you know, this is the holiday season, and people are just rushing around like crazy, and it's just so wonderful to say, okay, I'm going to take a day off and I'm not going to do anything but count birds.
Oh, I just think it's fun to get out. I like getting out to bird anyway, and then to compare what from one year to the next, what's happened with the bird-wise. Like now we're just finding fewer and fewer birds, it seems, even on a good day.
With the bird counts, you usually get to either go to a place that you love or a place that you've never been before. And either way, it's a lot of fun.
The birders are a lot of times very passionate, and they get enthusiastic about the littlest things that they see out there, and they try to show that enthusiasm to other people when they're talking about birds. And
It could be a moorhen hiding in there, or a coot.
Even one of our TV show producers tried to lend a hand in the count.
I see a shoe.
Oh, it's a shoebird.
Yeah, it's a shoebird.
Yeah, I think we call it a shoehorn.
Yeah.
A shoehorned owl.
I don't see him anywhere now.
Seeing birds, or shoes as it were, isn't the only way to count them. Often, a birder's sense of hearing is just as important.
Usually, you can glimpse something out of the corner of your eye, but hearing is probably the best sense that you can use. And there are programs for the computer where you can get used to bird song and identify a bird by its song or its call note. That's cool. I so like their songs.
For the information to be as exact as possible, the counts take place in the same areas at the same time every year, rain or shine.
The birds that are here are going to have to feed. So eventually they'll be out a little bit. But they mostly will be busy staying warm and dry, and it's going to be a lot harder to see birds.
So you're saying the birds are smarter than we are?
The birds aren't on our schedule. We'll put it that way. Actually, I've been outsmarted by a lot of birds.
In fact, one of the best senses for this type of work may be a sense of humor.
Well, there's some coots out there, not very exciting. And they don't even taste very good, do they?
Now, if you'd like to find out more about birds in Arizona or birding festivals that the Arizona Game and Fish Department sponsors, you can log on to our website at azgfd.gov. That's our show for this week. On behalf of our producers, Carol Lind and Gary Schaefer, I'm Chuck Emmert. Thanks for watching.